We're inviting different vendors each month to present and talk about business challenges and why people, are looking at different technology out there in the marketplace. We typically do 22 minutes because we believe that most people can decide within 20 minutes, half an hour, whether a technology is right for them. And to be honest, not many people have an hour to spare out of their day. So we're going to be going through the presentation with David today. We are going to have a poll halfway through, and then at the end, we're going to take a few minutes to answer any questions that people may have. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to David. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Graham. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for attending. It's really appreciated. RS22 are working with Avanan for a few reasons. The first being that they recognize that traditional secure email gateways, which I'll refer to as SEGs for the rest of this presentation, came to be long before cloud email was a thing. And as such, they weren't designed for modern day cloud email. And in fact, traditional SEGs actually are fundamentally flawed architecturally when it comes to protecting cloud email. And so a new approach is needed. And Avanan has reinvented the whole concept of security for email and for collaboration platforms. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that over the course of the next 20 minutes. Just, some stats really around the state of the phishing landscape in the current climate. From our own research, we found that in a typical 10,000 user environment, you can expect that there are 4,700 successful phish deliveries to the inbox on a monthly basis. The costs from phishing, continue to rise. It's the single email, remains the single most persistent vulnerability in any organization. There's only so much you can tighten it up before you affect, the delivery of legitimate mail. So it's a constant challenge. And it's causing the after effects of phishing attacks are causing huge amounts of time drain on SOC teams that have got a myriad of other things to get on with. But actually, nearly a quarter of their time is taken up with dealing with user reported emails, cleaning up damage caused by successful phishing attacks. And that really is far too much of their time being dedicated to just one threat vector. So, a little bit about Avanan. We've been ranked by Deloitte as the fastest growing email security vendor in each of the last 2 years. During that time, we've doubled our customer count from 4 to 8,000. And, the feedback from customers about the technology and how it's working for them is really strong. We're ranked #1, both on Gartner Peer Insights and on G2. So let's dig into the reasons why that's the case. As I mentioned before, phishing continues to be on the rise. Back in 2020, we saw a doubling in the overall number of phishing attacks over the prior year. And it's not just email now that is being used as an attack vector for these attacks. Increasingly, threat actors are looking to use file sharing platforms, collaboration tools like Teams, to look for multiple ways to gain access to an organization. So a little bit of a journey as to how email and the capabilities to protect email have changed over time. Perhaps some of you are still using on-premise mail servers, but increasingly more and more organizations have either begun the process of migrating to cloud email or are fully migrated to cloud email. But back in the beginning, it was an on-premise mail server that was deployed, and a SEG was typically deployed in front of that, and the MX records would have been basically rerouted to that secure email gateway, and email would flow through that before going through the on-premise mail server and onto the mailbox. And at the time, that architecture made sense. But once organizations begin to move to the cloud, then there's an architectural flaw. So when moving to cloud email, if continuing to utilize a traditional SEG technology, what you're having to do is continue to reroute the MX records to the secure email gateway, which is sitting in front of the cloud email infrastructure. And there's two fundamental problems with that. Number one, there is inherent security within cloud email, whether that's O365, which by default has EOP as its standard protection, but the ability is there for that to be upgraded to ATP Defender. And the same is true of Google Workspace. There is security inherent in that cloud email platform. By moving the MX records to a SEG that sits in front of that cloud, you're actually having to disable a lot of the native security within cloud email. So it's a waste of the security that exists within that cloud email platform. And the other problem, which is a really big one, is that by sitting your email security in front of cloud email, that security layer, the SEG, is blind to what's going on within that cloud. And that means it's blind to all internal email communication. It's going to see inbound traffic, but it's not going to see the inbox to inbox communication within an organization. And quite commonly now, phishing attacks are launched from a compromised email account, where the email is then launched from one mailbox to one or several other mailboxes within that organization. And traditional secure email gateway technologies are not going to see those emails at all. So I think we've got some poll questions, just as a quick pause.
Yes, so yeah, Oliver, if you could put the poll questions up, that would be great. The poll will remain throughout the remainder of this webinar for people to complete, and one lucky person will win an Amazon voucher for your efforts. Thank you. So
the poll is now up, and all I will say is that on point 7, you can kind of hold it in your mind until we get to point 7, which will come up on a slide slightly later.
Okay, great. Lovely. Is that poll going to stay up there visible, or can we, yeah?
Yeah, you can continue, David.
Can people still see the slides?
They can move the poll across if just click on the thing and it should slip out of the way.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, recognizing the fact that there is this fundamental architectural flaw in a traditional SEG's ability to protect cloud email, we've started to see a number of startup vendors introduce a method of connecting to the cloud email via API. And this is better because this is embedded within the cloud itself. And so these technologies are able to utilize the native security first and then act as an additional layer to catch what the native security is missing. And in this approach, there is still though a big problem, because just following the steps here, the way API-based next-gen email security technologies work is that the email gets delivered to the end user, and then once it's delivered, the email is then removed back from the inbox and is then scanned by the next-gen email security technologies. And once that email has been determined safe, then it gets delivered back to the inbox. Now, the problem with that is that with cloud latency and with the ebbs and flows of email volumes, it can't be trusted that those emails are going to be pulled out of the inbox fast enough before the user can interact with it. So the approach is better because there are ability to catch fish that have been missed by the cloud email security layer, but they have this problem of the threat gets delivered, and even if that persists there for a minute or two, there's a very real risk that the user is still exposed to that threat. And when Avanan first started out, this was the architectural approach that we took, but we recognized that there was still a flaw here from a security perspective. And so we redesigned our approach. So our patented approach is that we act as an AI connection next-gen email security technology, but we work in an inline mode. And what that means is we do all of our assessment and analysis of the emails after the cloud email default security, but before the email's delivered to the inbox. And we're the only vendor that does it this way. So with us, there is no delivery of that email to the inbox before it's taken back out and assessed. We assess it, and then when we deem it safe, we deliver it. And just to give you an idea of the scale of the phishing threat out there today, around about 60 to 65% of all phish are credential harvesting attacks. And the one thing, of course, you need to get past the email security layer in order to launch a credential harvesting attack is a malicious URL. But within a percentage point or two of each other, the big four secure email gateway vendors, so Mimecast, Microsoft, Proofpoint, and Cisco, they all miss approximately half of all the malicious URLs that they scan. And there are multiple reasons for this, but the principal one is that their primary method for determining whether a URL is malicious or not is whether it sits on a known deny list. If it doesn't, then they quickly run out of ability to check for the validity of that URL, and so make the decision to deliver the email, because of course they don't want to stop legitimate email from being delivered. So when you think about 65% of phish being credential harvesting, and when you think about SEGs missing half of all malicious URLs, you can see that it's almost a certainty that every organization is having phish delivered to their inbox with routine regularity. And so an additional layer that has much higher detection capability is a good idea to sit as a layer behind the cloud email infrastructure. And you'll have noticed, hopefully, that on the Avanan logo, it says underneath a Checkpoint company. Avanan was acquired by Checkpoint, I think it was last August. And one of the things that we've done is we've integrated Avanan's AI engine into Checkpoint's threat cloud. And this is huge for us because Checkpoint Threat Cloud has connectivity to around about 150,000 customer networks. It consists of 42 AI engines that's absorbing data from almost every aspect of those customer networks. And it, on a daily basis, is finding, on average, 7,000 previously unknown or zero-day malware strains. And Avanan is constantly learning from Checkpoint Threat Cloud. And this is one of the principal reasons why we've got a far better capability to detect phish than traditional secure email gateways, and indeed other sort of next-gen email security API vendors who don't have the ability to learn from such a huge source of threat intelligence. So what does that look like then in terms of, well, how good is the phishing protection that Avanan offers? Well, if you think that, generally speaking, we're sat behind either native cloud security or traditional SEGs, we are therefore able to consistently see what's coming through those technologies and what we're then able to detect and stop. And we took pause to run a study across several months where we looked at a total of 300 million emails that had flowed through other email security technologies and then subsequently being checked by Avanan. And you can see that by order of magnitude, we are significantly better at being able to detect phish. And we find that in a typical customer deployment, we cut the number of phish that are actually delivered to the inbox down by approximately 98 to 99.5% from the statistics before we were deployed. So conscious that 22 minutes is not a long period of time, I wanted to make sure that I wrapped up what I was going to cover to give us some time for any questions if people have questions. But also, I know that Graham, you wanted to talk through an offer you wanted to make to the attendees today.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for that, David. Very, very interesting to see that. So yeah, RS22, we'd like to offer all the attendees from today's webinar a free email security check. This will enable you free of charge for a couple of weeks. Very easy to deploy, only takes a few minutes to be set up. And at the end of that, you will receive a comprehensive report showing you how your email is performing. So if anybody would like to take advantage of that, please email me afterwards. We're happy to do that. Or was that included in the poll question? Was that number 7, Ollie, that you were saying people should wait till they've seen this?
It was, but some people have answered already. They've kind of shot their dart, so to speak, already.
Okay.
But you know, that's fine. You know, we can also, because there's still a couple left to come in. You know, if you haven't clicked yes yet, obviously, well, this is kind of what we were referencing in that 7th question. But you'd like to basically have something that takes 5 minutes to stick on your machine, 2 weeks free of charge for this exemplary IT security solution. And then, of course, you get a report and you can kind of, I mean, it's probably going to make you go on hold because you'll be panicking that like quite a lot of stuff gets through.
Yeah, I should probably just point out that so the way this works is that Avanan will get deployed in what we call detect only mode, which you can think of as a watch only mode. What that means is it's going to sit behind whatever security layers you currently have in place, and it will analyze email and it will keep an audit trail of what it would have taken preventative action on, but it won't actually take that preventative action. And so what we're talking here is about an entirely non-intrusive process that will not have any impact on email delivery, but will give you a detailed report to understand exactly what is getting through your current security layers, and will give you insight as to who your most targeted departments are, who your most targeted users are, and a variety of other data points. So
excellent. Yes, did have one question, but I think we've really covered that off. But the question was, how does Avanan prove their detection capabilities are superior to other email platforms? And this is exactly this, you know, take advantage of this. It's free. It's not going to take a lot of your time to set up, and I think the results will actually speak for themselves. So I think we have done this in 20 minutes rather than 22 minutes. So well done, David. Any other thoughts or questions from anybody, Ollie, on the question board?
No, the only thing I would say is that I'm a cream first, then a jam guy on my scones. I am a cream first. Yeah, don't hate me for it. But the reason being that my wife is the opposite. My wife is jam first, then a cream blodge on top. Whereas I quite like, you know, good bit of cream, and then I'm a jam spoon. But there we go. That's all I'd add.
I mean, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit unique in that I just like a bit of butter on my scones, but there we go. So always one. Okay, so thank you everyone for attending today. I hope you found that useful. If you think of any other questions afterwards, please pop us an email and we'll get straight back to you. So David, Oliver, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for everyone's attendance. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Bye now.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.